Hello, dear students. Welcome back to our news channel. Students, today we are talking about a big event happening in the world of climate change. It is COP29. Yes, COP29. Now, students, maybe you have heard of COP or the Conference of Parties in the news. COP stands for Conference of Parties. So you might have heard this term in the news. But today we are going to unpack what it's all about. We'll learn why it started, why it is so important for every single one of us, and why India in particular plays such a crucial role. So this is especially important because India often speaks for developing countries. India is a developing nation, right? So India often speaks for developing countries, countries that have different needs and challenges than, uh, wealthier and developed countries. So let's dive in. First thing first, what is COP? COP क्या है? COP stands for Conference of Parties. Yes, this we know, है ना? It stands for Conference of Parties. And it's a big meeting organized by the United Nations, right? You can think of it as a global gathering where leaders from almost every country in the world come together to talk about one common issue, that is, how to protect our planet from climate change. Now, why the name Conference of Parties? Well, each country that's part of a global agreement of a treaty is called party. हर एक कंट्री जो इस ट्रीटी के ग्लोबल ग्लोबली उन्होंने अग्रीमेंट पे साइन किया है, वो इस पार्टी के इसको इस ट्रीटी को बेसिकली पार्टी कहते हैं, राइट? सो जो जो कंट्रीज इस कंट्री जो कंट्रीज ने ये ट्रीटी साइन किया है, उस पर्टिकुलर कंट्री को हम पार्टी कहते हैं. सो द अग्रीमेंट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट here is the United Nation Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC for short. So this was the agreement which all countries came together and they agreed upon certain provisions, certain guidelines, and they all agreed कि हाँ कि हम ये सारे जो गोल्स हैं इनके लिए हम काम करेंगे. And this was signed back in the year 1992. And this document was signed by almost 200 countries. And it was one of the first big steps taken to address the threat of climate change. And since then, countries have gathered every year to talk about climate related issues, and that gathering is called the COP. तो UNFCCC ने एक अग्रीमेंट डिजाइन किया था और उस अग्रीमेंट को सभी कंट्रीज ने साइन किया. तो जो कंट्रीज ने साइन किया उनको हम कहते हैं कि दे आर पार्टी टू दिस अग्रीमेंट. और इसी गैदरिंग को जहां पे सारी कंट्रीज जिन्होंने साइन किया था इकट्ठा होते हैं, दे गैदर एंड दे टॉक अबाउट द क्लाइमेट चेंज and issues which is related to environment. So this gathering is called Conference of Parties. All right. And this year, the 29th meeting or COP29 is, set to take place in Baku. Where is Baku? It's in Azerbaijan. Okay, Azerbaijan. Now, your homework is to find out where Azerbaijan is located, like in which continent, and you have to mention this in the comments below. All right. तो अब हम बात करते हैं कि अ, जो अजरबैजान में होने वाला कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज है उसके रिगार्डिंग हम बात करते हैं सो इन दिस कॉन्फ्रेंस लीडर्स साइंटिस्ट एंड एक्टिविस्ट एंड एक्सपर्ट्स फ्रॉम around the world are getting ready to discuss how to reduce impacts of climate change and how each country can help. The question is, how did COP come about? Why did we even start these conferences? क्या क्या जरूरत थी कि कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज करने की? हम ऐसे भी तो बात कर सकते थे. Well, let's rewind to the 1980s and 1990s. During that time, what happened? Scientists started to realize that human activities were warming the earth. We were burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas for energy. And this we know now, right? It released huge amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And these gases trap heat from the sun, causing the Earth's temperature to rise. And we know that this process is called global warming, right? So, scientists warned that if we didn't do something to reduce these emissions, we would face more intense, extreme climate events. कौन से extreme climate events? जैसे floods, droughts, right? So, prevent this, countries needed to work together because climate change affects everyone, no matter where you live. So, in the year 1992, world leaders met in Brazil and they agreed on the UNFCC. They agreed on the UNFCC, a treaty to take action against climate change. And this agreement was a big movement. It meant that all these countries were committed to protect the planet. And since then, उसके बाद से ही UNFCC has organized COP each year, right? Where countries discuss how to reduce greenhouse gases, how to, adapt to climate impacts and finance these efforts. And over the years, COP has grown into one of the most important events for climate action. So, why is COP important? Well, there are certain reasons. First is COP, Conference of Parties, is where countries set global climate goals. क्या करते हैं वहां पे? इस मीटिंग में they set global climate goals. All right. For example, जैसे COP 21 जब हुआ था, COP 21, COP 21, it's quite an important event in Paris. Countries agreed. Why this is important? Because countries agreed to keep global warming below 2 degrees Celsius. Students, out of all the COPs, COP 21, which, uh, which occur in Paris, it's quite important. क्योंकि इसी कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज में countries agreed that they would keep that they would strive to keep the global temperature below 2 degrees Celsius, while the ideal target was ideal target is 1.5 degrees Celsius. And this goal is critical because even small increase in temperature, it can lead to dangerous changes in weather patterns, right? तो COP 21 is quite important and ये तो हमें वैसे भी पता होना चाहिए. COP 21 के बारे में तो वैसे भी पता ही होना चाहिए. All right. Next important reason why COP is important is because uh, uh, it helps hold countries accountable, right? And when countries agree to climate targets at COP, they are expected to report their progress, like what they are doing, or are they really serious or not. So this transparency is essential because it allows everyone to see who is making progress and who needs to do more. And most importantly, this COP, it focuses a lot on helping developing countries. And these countries, we know that developing countries, they often face more challenges in adapting to climate change. क्योंकि सबसे पहली बात तो जो डेवलपिंग नेशन होते हैं उनके पास वैसे रिसोर्सेस नहीं अवेलेबल है जैसे डेवलप नेशन के पास है, राइट? अब जो रिसोर्सेज यूएस या फिर यूरोपियन कंट्रीज के पास अवेलेबल है, ऑब्वियस सी बात है वो एशियन कंट्रीज के पास अवेलेबल नहीं है। जैसे इंडिया हो गया, बांग्लादेश हो गया, नेपाल हो गया, राइट? So COP, Conference of Parties, it provides a platform for them to ask for support in terms of funding, finances, technology, and knowledge sharing. And one of the most significant parts of COP is about money. But in environment terms, we call it climate finance. Climate finance, which means that funding that helps countries reduce their emissions and adapt to climate impacts. For instance, जैसे COP 15 जब हुआ था, तो कंट्रीज ने क्या अग्री किया था COP 15 में, कि दे अग्रीड, they basically pledged to uh, provide 100 billion every year to developing countries by 2020. And this funding is crucial because many developing countries are hit hardest by climate change. क्योंकि अगर देखा जाए तो सबसे ज्यादा जो ब्रंट है वो फेस किसको किसको करना पड़ रहा है, किसको फेस करना पड़ रहा है क्लाइमेट चेंज का? डेवलपिंग नेशन एंड अंडर डेवलप्ड नेशंस को। डेवलप्ड नेशंस तो ऑलरेडी दे हैव द रिसोर्सेस, एंड क्योंकि उन्होंने इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन के टाइम पे इतना ज़्यादा एमिशन प्रोड्यूस किया था, इतना ज़्यादा पॉइजनस गैसेस एमिट करी थी, तो अब जो क्लाइमेट चेंज अभी हुआ है, कहीं ना कहीं उनका कंट्रीब्यूशन ज़्यादा है, राइट? एंड one more thing that that this COP, Conference of Parties, it brings together experts, scientists, and businesses, and even activists. It think of it as a huge brainstorming session where they think about how to solve climate problems, and many new solutions like renewable energy project or green technologies, they get a boost at COP, right? So आप इस आर्टिकल को जब आप पढ़ोगे तो यहाँ पे कुछ और भी चीजें मेंशन है, जैसे COP 15 के बारे में मेंशन है, एंड इंडिया के बारे में भी मेंशन है। इंडिया के बारे में यहाँ पे क्या मेंशन है कि इंडिया इंडिया हैज बिकम वॉइस फॉर वॉइस ऑफ डेवलपिंग नेशन। तो ये चीज़ भी आप uh, इस पे एक्सप्लोर करोगे। जैसे यहाँ पे लिखा है, इंडिया इज एक्सपेक्टेड टू स्टिक टू इट्स स्टैंस ऑफ गेटिंग डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज टू इंक्रीज क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस, राइट? जस्ट नाउ वी हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट climate finance. See, at COP 29, India's main message will likely to be about fairness and balance. क्योंकि इंडिया चाहता है कि जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज हैं उन्होंने जो प्रॉमिस किया था COP 15 में, COP 15 में अभी 29 चल रहा है, राइट? COP 15 में उन्होंने प्रॉमिस किया था कि एवरी ईयर these developed nations, they will provide 100 billion per year by 2020 to meet the needs of developing countries. And अभी तक वो fulfill efficiently नहीं हो पाया है. So India will also continue to advocate for flexibility, meaning that developing countries should have some freedom to grow while adopting sustainable practices. And India is also working on its own green initiative, जैसे solar energy production हो गया या फिर planting more trees हो गया. And this is all a part of larger plan which is called National Action Plan on Climate Change. तो ये सारी चीज़ें इंडिया अपने बारे में और जो डेवलपिंग नेशंस है उनके बिहाफ में ये चीज़ें COP29 में प्रेजेंट करेगा, राइट? ऑल राइट, सो you might be wondering, what does all this have to do with you? Why should a child who is in 8th or 7th grade or even 5th grade care about COP or climate finance? Well, students, the choices made at COP impact your future. See, climate change affects everyone, especially young people. And the climate you build today will determine the kind of world you grow up in. Right? So you can also take action in your daily life. Like simple changes like using less plastic, conserving water, and learning about renewable energy can make a big difference. And who knows, one day you might be one of the people attending COP, shaping the future of our planet. Right? So, thank you for joining me on today's episode. Remember, this planet is a shared home, and we all have a role in taking care of it. So, if you joined today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. Let's all work together for a greener, healthier world. Until next time, take care and keep learning about a beautiful planet.